Hi. I'm Deborah. Nice to meet you. Before I tell you my story, kindly tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I like to know where you're from. Now let's dive in. When Daniel first told me about the land, I thought he was joking. 75 acres? Are you buying Texas? I laughed, sipping my coffee. He grinned the way he does when he's convinced he's stumbled upon the opportunity of a lifetime. Not just me, he said. It's a group deal. For families all going in together. We each get 18.75 acres, 4 acres for our own home plot, and the rest is shared. I frowned. Shared. Yeah, he said, waving a hand like it was no big deal. 14.75 acres each, pooled together for a community space. We can decide later what to do with it. Maybe a vineyard. Maybe a park. The possibilities are endless. I should have known then that deciding later was code for trouble. The other families were people I barely knew. Daniel's cousin Mark and his wife Heather, an old college buddy named Paul with his new fiancée, and a quiet couple, the Whitakers, who apparently owned a construction business. On paper it seemed like a charming semi-rural dream. Big open skies, no nosy neighbors, and plenty of room for gardens, trails, whatever we wanted. But the more Daniel explained, the more it sounded tangled. So, we all own the land together? I asked. Like legally? Yes, but each family's plot is separate. The rest is communal. And what happens if someone wants to, do something weird with their share? They can't, not without group approval, he said, grinning like he'd already solved that problem. It's all in the agreement. I didn't push it then. Daniel was so excited I didn't want to be the cloud over his sunny plans. But that night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and imagined 100 ways it could go wrong. The trouble started sooner than I expected. The first group meeting about the land was in Mark's barn, everyone sitting around a battered wooden table. Mark spread out maps and started talking about clearing the back acres. If we get started now, he said, we can have it ready for grazing by spring. Cattle prices are up. Could be a good investment. Grazing. I repeated, glancing at Daniel. We're buying cows? Mark shrugged. We don't all have to run them, but the income would be shared. I know a guy who can get us a good herd. Paul leaned forward. Clearing's not cheap. We'll each need to pitch in for equipment rental, labor, maybe fencing. Heather smiled sweetly. It's only fair. We all benefit from the shared land, right? I looked at Daniel, waiting for him to speak up. He said he just nodded. Afterward, in the truck, I let it out. I thought this was about having our own little space. Now it's cows and clearing land and, what? Paying for a farm I don't want. He kept his eyes on the road. Babe, it's just the first step. And if it makes money, that's good for us. I shook my head. You don't see it. This isn't just land, it's a tangle of other people's dreams, and we're paying for all of them. He sighed, that patient, let's not fight sigh he uses when he thinks I'm being overly cautious. But I wasn't just cautious. I was uneasy. And unease has a way of digging in deep until you can't ignore it anymore. The second meeting about the land was supposed to be just a quick update. That's what Daniel told me. Quick, simple. No drama. It lasted 3 hours. Mark came armed with cost estimates for clearing the back acres. Numbers so high I nearly choked on my coffee. We're looking at around 15,000 total, he said, tapping the paper. Split 4 ways. That's $37.50 each family. I blinked. Now. The sooner we start, the better the grass will be for grazing, he said. Every month we wait, we lose potential revenue. Heather chimed in. Think of it as an investment. Once the cattle are producing, we can start paying ourselves back. Paul nodded like a bobblehead. The Whitakers stayed silent, exchanging glances I couldn't read. Daniel spoke up, not to question the plan but to ask about bulk discounts on fencing materials. My stomach dropped. He was already in. When the meeting finally broke up, I cornered him in the parking lot. Are you seriously agreeing to this? I demanded. It makes sense, he said calmly. We clear now, we make money later. That's smart business. It's not our business. I shot back. It's Mark's cattle farm. He's the one who wants this, not us. Daniel looked at me like I was missing something obvious. We own the land too. The cattle benefit us just as much as him. I folded my arms. No. The cattle benefit the group. Which means we're paying for something we didn't even ask for. His jaw tightened. This is exactly why I didn't want to overthink it. You always find the problems before you see the opportunities. That stung. Because the truth was I'd seen plenty of opportunity, just not here. I'd imagined building a quiet home, maybe a big garden, watching the sunsets without worrying about someone else's herd trampling through our so-called shared space. Over the next week, the tension seeped into everything. Dinner conversations were shorter. He spent more time on his laptop, scrolling through ranching articles and talking about profit per head. I spent more time staring at the ceiling at night, wondering if we were already in too deep to get out. Then came the email from Mark, subject line, urgent, decision needed. Apparently, the Whitakers had backed out of the cattle idea. That left the 3 remaining families with the same total cost, which meant our share jumped to $5,000. I nearly slammed my laptop shut. Absolutely not, I told Daniel. We're not doing this. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. If we back out now, we look like we're not committed. They'll think we're the problem. Maybe we are the problem, I said, my voice low. Because I don't want to live on land that feels like a business deal gone wrong before it's even started. We stared at each other in the kitchen, the silence between us heavier than the cost estimate sitting in my inbox. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just about money or land, it was about control. And right now I didn't have any. The next meeting was different. You could feel it before anyone even spoke. We were back in Mark's barn, but the atmosphere was heavier, like everyone had already picked sides before they sat down. Mark had a printout of revised plans, minus the Whitakers, with bigger grazing fields and a tighter budget schedule. I'll just say it, he began. If we're moving forward, we need everyone all in. No more delays, no more back and forth. We split costs evenly, we share profits evenly. That's the deal. Paul nodded quickly, eager to get the tension over with. His fiancée scrolled on her phone, pretending not to hear. I glanced at Daniel, hoping, just hoping he'd speak up. He didn't. So I did. I can't agree to this. Not with the Whitakers gone, and not with a cattle farm I never signed up for. Mark's eyes narrowed. You did sign up for it. You signed the land agreement. Shared property means shared decisions. Shared decisions, I said sharply, doesn't mean we all get railroaded into one person's vision. Heather crossed her arms. It's not just Mark's vision. We all stand to make money. Isn't that what we're here for? No, I said, my voice shaking. I was here for a home. For space. Not a business. Not someone else's project. Daniel shifted in his chair like he wanted to disappear. That stung worse than anything Mark said. Mark set his papers down with a thump. Then maybe you should sell your share and walk away. But don't drag the rest of us down while you make up your mind. The air went still. Paul coughed into his hand, looking anywhere but at us. Daniel finally spoke, his voice low. We're not selling. I turned to him. We're not. No, he said firmly. We've already invested. We're staying in. I stared at him like he was a stranger. So you're deciding for both of us now? The room felt too small, too warm. I could hear the buzzing of a single fly circling above us, louder than the voices that followed. When we left, I didn't say a word until we were halfway home. You just made a decision that affects our future without even talking to me, I said, my hands clenched in my lap. I did talk to you, he said. You just didn't like the answer. That night I slept in the guest room. Not out of spite, but because the idea of lying next to him while my mind ran circles around his choice made me feel trapped. The next morning I woke to an email from Heather. Short and pointed. If you're not committed, it's better for everyone if you exit now. This arrangement only works with full participation. It wasn't just the land anymore. I could feel the shift. This was personal now. And once family turns a deal into a battlefield, it's only a matter of time before something breaks. By the end of the week, it felt like we were living under siege. Mark called twice to check in, which was really just him restating the same arguments about cattle and profits. Heather sent me a spreadsheet with projected earnings over 5 years, complete with little smiley faces next to the totals, like that would somehow soften the fact that we were still out $5,000 before a single cow touched the land. Daniel treated the whole thing like it was a business negotiation. I treated it like it was a fire slowly creeping toward our house. You're being dramatic, he told me over dinner, after I'd spent 10 minutes explaining why I wanted to walk away. No, I said quietly. I'm being realistic. You just don't like my version of reality. The email that pushed things over the edge came on a Tuesday morning. Mark had gone ahead and scheduled the land clearing. Crews would arrive in 2 weeks. Payment was due in 7 days. I called Daniel at work. Did you know about this? Yeah, he said, his voice low, like he didn't want his coworkers to overhear. We agreed in principle. The words stuck in my throat. I hadn't agreed to anything. I hung up without saying goodbye. That evening I drove out to the property alone. The grass was high and golden in the late summer sun, rippling in the wind like water. From the rise near our plot I could see the whole expanse. The empty acres, the tree line in the distance, the faint dirt road cutting through it. It was beautiful. Untouched. And soon it would be gone. Mark's truck pulled up beside mine. He got out, leaning against the hood like we were old friends. You're fighting the wrong battle, he said. I crossed my arms. Am I? You think this is about cows? It's not. It's about value. Land like this doesn't come around often. You walk away now, you'll regret it. Daniel knows that. Deep down you do too. I shook my head. I regret letting you talk him into it. He smirked like I'd just confirmed something he already knew. Then maybe you should focus on convincing him, not me. I left without another word, the sound of gravel spitting from my tires louder than anything else. That night Daniel and I finally exploded. I'm not throwing away land just because you're scared of a little risk, he said, pacing the living room. And I'm not chaining myself to a deal that's already bleeding us dry, I shot back. We went in circles, profit versus peace, potential versus reality, until I realized we weren't just arguing about land anymore. We were arguing about us. About trust. About who got the final say in our future. The shouting stopped when I told him, if this goes through, I want us out. Completely. I don't care what we lose. He stared at me like I'd just threatened to burn down the house. And maybe in a way I had. The silence between us stretched for days. We spoke only when necessary, about groceries, bills, the weather, but avoided the topic of the land like it was a live wire we'd both been burned by. I could feel Daniel slipping further into his plans with Mark and Paul, and I was drifting further away from the idea that this could ever work. The deadline for payment was 3 days away when I got a text from Paul's fiancée. You should know Paul's having second thoughts too. Don't tell Mark I said that. I stared at the message for a long time. It wasn't just me. This dream was already cracking at the seams, and Mark's confidence was holding it together with nothing but stubbornness. That night I told Daniel about the text. He didn't look surprised, just tired. Paul's not committed, he said. That's why we need to hold firm. If we back out now, we lose everything we've put in. I took a deep breath. And if we stay in, we lose something bigger. He didn't answer. 2 mornings later, I woke to the sound of him in the kitchen making coffee. He handed me a mug without looking at me. I called Mark, he said finally. Told him we're selling our share back. For a moment I just stared at him. You did. He nodded. I can't keep pushing you into something you don't believe in. I want the land, yeah, but not more than I want us. The relief hit me so hard I almost cried. Not because I won the argument, but because the weight I'd been carrying finally lifted. Selling wasn't clean. Mark was furious, accusing us of bailing on the family vision. Heather stopped returning my calls. The buyback price was less than what we'd put in, and yes, it hurt to swallow that loss. But on the day we signed the papers, Daniel and I drove out to the property one last time. The cruise hadn't started yet. The golden grass still waved in the wind, the tree line still stood untouched. It's beautiful, I said quietly. He slipped his hand into mine. Yeah. But it's not ours. We stood there for a while saying nothing, just listening to the wind. For the first time in months, it felt like we were on the same side again. We drove away knowing we'd traded acres of possibility for something harder to measure. Peace. And maybe in the end that was worth more than land ever could be. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed my story, don't forget to like and hit subscribe. You will also enjoy other stories on AJ Family Drama. Until next time, bye.